Long ago, before the Galactic Council was formed, there were stories of a people called humans. Every race in the galaxy had a version of the tale. Some said the humans were builders who shaped the stars. Others said they were travelers who walked across galaxies as if they were paths of light. A few even whispered that the humans had reached the edge of everything and kept walking beyond. No one knew why they left or where they went. They simply vanished. In the ages that followed, the galaxy grew quiet. Many young races rose and learned how to travel among the stars. They built ships, colonies, and great cities. In time, they came together and formed the Galactic Council to keep peace and order. To them, humans were only myths, stories for children, or lessons about how a race could burn bright and fade away. Yet the name of humanity never vanished completely. On distant worlds, ruins remained. On forgotten moons, strange machines still hummed with faint energy. Across the galaxy, songs survived, old melodies that did not belong to any known race. Though no one could say for certain, all of them carried the same echo of a vanished people. Among those who studied the past was a young archivist named Laro. He lived on a council world where countless records were stored. His task was simple: to clean, organize, and restore old data. Most found the work boring, but to Laro, each record was a window into forgotten times. He loved tracing the lines of history and searching for meaning in broken fragments. One quiet day, while searching through damaged archives, he found something strange. It was a set of old maps. They were drawn in a style no one used anymore. The stars were marked not with council symbols but with a language he did not know. At first he thought it was random, but the more he studied, the more he saw patterns. Laro carried the maps to his teacher, an older scholar named Saran. Saran studied them carefully but shook his head. He explained that the symbols were not random. They were ancient human markings. Few knew how to read them, but Saran had once seen fragments in old museums. He told Laro that such records were rare, perhaps even forbidden to some. Laro felt a spark in his heart. If these maps belonged to humans, then they were not myths. They were real. He asked Saran why such evidence was not shown to the council. Saran only smiled sadly. The council preferred peace and order, and the return of the human story always brought fear. What if the humans came back? Would the council still rule? But Laro could not ignore what he had found. He began to study in secret. Late at night, when the halls were empty, he compared the maps to modern star charts. To his surprise, the human maps reached farther than any council maps. They spoke of paths beyond the edge of known space, as if humans had walked there long before others could dream of it. As weeks passed, Laro began to notice something else. The maps pointed to places where human ruins had already been found. They were not just records of travel but guides, like a message left behind. His heart beat faster. Could it be that the humans wanted others to find these paths? Or were they markers to remind themselves where they had been? When he tried to share his findings at the academy, the council leaders dismissed him. They said humans were myths, old stories without meaning. They told him the maps were mistakes, broken fragments, or even clever fakes. Yet Laro could see the way their voices shook. Behind their calm faces, there was unease. He began to wonder if the council feared the truth. If humans were real, and if they had walked farther than any race, what would it mean for the galaxy today? The thought did not leave his mind. One evening, while walking home through the quiet streets of the Archive City, Laro looked up at the night sky. Stars filled the darkness like scattered fire. Somewhere out there, the maps were pointing toward a story greater than anyone could imagine. He felt both small and alive. In that moment, he whispered to himself that one day, the truth would come. Humanity was not gone forever. Their name was still spoken, their ruins still stood, and their maps still told stories. Laro did not know when or how, but deep inside, he believed that the vanished ones would return. And when they did, the galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy was wide and full of voices. Every day, thousands of signals moved through the void, carrying news, trade offers, and council orders. Yet among this endless chatter, one signal appeared that was unlike any other. It came from the far edge of known space, beyond the last patrol routes. At first it was faint, like a soft whisper carried across endless distance. Automated stations caught it and sent alerts to the Galactic Council. The message was not long. It repeated the same pattern again and again. No one could understand its meaning. Council technicians tried to decode it. They compared it with every known language. They measured its rhythm and tone. Some thought it was random static from a dying star. Others said it might be a hidden code from smugglers or pirates. Days turned into weeks, and still no one could solve it. Among those who heard about the strange signal was Laro, the young archivist who had studied the old human maps. He listened to the recording in the archive halls, and something about it made his heart race. The signal was steady, rising and falling in a simple pattern. It reminded him of something he had seen before. Laro hurried to the medical section of the archives, where records of many species were stored. He searched the oldest files, the ones copied from museums of the past. There, he found the answer. The rhythm of the signal matched the pulse patterns of humans recorded long ago. It was not random. It was alive with meaning. When he told his teacher Saran, the old scholar listened carefully and grew silent. At last Saran said that such a discovery would shake the council. If humans were sending signals again, it meant they had not vanished at all. They were still out there, watching the galaxy from afar. Laro felt a mix of fear and wonder. The signal was not long, but it repeated with purpose. He played it over and over until the sound filled his mind. It was almost like a heartbeat, steady and patient, as if the galaxy itself was waiting. News of Laro's findings spread quickly. At first, most dismissed it. Council leaders argued that the signal was only a trick of data, nothing more. But as more researchers listened, the truth grew harder to ignore. The pattern was too precise, too human. Soon the story reached the common people across the stars. On busy trade stations, travelers spoke of the vanished ones returning. In quiet farming colonies, families sat by their receivers and played the signal, wondering what it meant. Some were excited, hoping humans would bring wisdom and gifts. Others were afraid, worrying that humans might claim the galaxy for themselves. The council met in secret chambers. They debated whether to block the signal from public networks. Yet it was too late. The signal spread faster than they could stop it. Copies were shared on every channel, and recordings were sung in new songs. The heartbeat of the humans was echoing across the galaxy once more. In the midst of this storm, Laro was called before the council. He stood in the grand chamber, where leaders of many races sat in tall seats that curved around him. They asked him to explain his findings. With calm voice, he told them the truth. The signal matched human records. It could not be denied. The chamber grew tense. Some counselors leaned forward with bright eyes, saying this was a chance to welcome the most ancient of allies. Others frowned, warning that if humans returned, no race would hold power against them. Arguments rose and fell, but no answer was reached. After the meeting, Laro walked alone through the long halls of the council building. His mind was heavy, yet also alive with wonder. For years, humans had been only a story, a dream from forgotten times. Now their voice was reaching across the stars again. One night, he climbed to the top of the archive tower. From there, he could see the wide sky above the council world. He held a small recorder in his hand and played the signal once more. The steady rhythm echoed softly around him. As he listened, he imagined distant travelers watching the same stars and sending this message home. It was not a message of war or demand. It was simple and patient, as if the humans were saying, "We are here. We remember. We wait." Laro closed his eyes and breathed deeply. He knew the galaxy would not remain the same after this. Whatever the council decided, the truth had already touched the people. The vanished ones were not gone. Their silent signal had returned, and with it came the promise of a greater story yet to unfold. And far beyond the borders of the known galaxy, ships no one had seen in ages stirred quietly in the dark, moving with purpose toward the stars they once called home. The signal continued for many months. It pulsed through the stars like a steady heartbeat. At first, the council tried to calm the people by saying it was only a forgotten machine sending old echoes. But no one believed that anymore. Too many had studied it. Too many had felt its meaning. The galaxy was waiting for something, and soon that wait ended. One quiet cycle, the watchers at the farthest edge of council space saw something impossible. Their screens lit up with shapes moving out of the dark. At first they thought it was an error, but the readings grew stronger. Dozens of vast ships were entering the galaxy, each larger than any council vessel ever built. The ships moved without sound, without threat, and without hesitation. Their hulls glowed faintly, as if the light of distant stars was captured inside them. No one could explain how they traveled or how they remained unseen for so long. What was certain was this: they were human. The council chambers filled with panic. Messages poured in from every colony and station. Some demanded defenses. Others begged for welcome ceremonies. Leaders spoke over each other, their voices sharp with fear and hope. The people had long dreamed of this day, but when it came, no one was ready. Laro, the young archivist, was in the great hall when the news arrived. He listened as the counselors argued, his heart pounding with both wonder and unease. He remembered the old maps, the ruins, and the signal. All of them had pointed to this moment. Humanity was no longer a story. Humanity was here. The council sent fleets to the border to watch the arrival. The ships moved carefully, yet none dared to block their path. For every step forward the humans took, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then, for the first time, the ships spoke. Across every channel, in every tongue, a single word echoed. It was simple, yet powerful. The word was home. The effect was immediate. On trade worlds, people filled the streets, shouting with joy or trembling with fear. On quiet farming planets, families stopped their work and looked to the sky, whispering the word to themselves. On grand stations near the council worlds, groups gathered around screens, unable to turn away. The council met again in secret. Some leaders wanted to close the borders, afraid that humans would claim everything. Others said such a move was foolish. If humans could cross galaxies, no barrier could hold them back. They agreed only on one thing: someone had to meet the humans face to face. To the surprise of many, Laro was chosen for the envoy. The council claimed they needed a scholar of history to speak for the galaxy, but Laro knew the truth. Few wanted the burden of standing before the vanished ones. It was easier to send someone young, someone who had already studied their maps and their signal. When Laro was told, he felt both honored and afraid. His hands shook as he packed his few belongings. He thought of Saran, his teacher, who reminded him to listen more than he spoke. "The past is alive," Saran said gently, "and now you will walk inside it." Soon after, the envoy ships left the council world and traveled toward the human fleet. The journey was silent, each member lost in thought. Some rehearsed speeches, others stared out the windows, watching the stars drift past. Laro sat quietly, holding the small recorder that still played the human signal. Its steady rhythm gave him courage. At last, the envoy ships reached the edge of the human fleet. The council pilots halted and waited. The human ships were vast, shining like giant lanterns in the dark. Then, without a sound, one of them opened a path of light. The envoy ship was drawn gently inside, as if carried by invisible hands. Laro pressed his face to the window as the human vessel surrounded them. Its walls were smooth, without seams or marks, as though it had been grown rather than built. A soft glow lit the way forward, guiding them deeper into the heart of the ship. No force was used, yet no one doubted the humans controlled every step. When the ship came to rest, the envoy was asked to leave. A great door slid open with perfect silence. Beyond it, a wide hall stretched before them, filled with light that seemed alive. The air was warm and calm, carrying a faint sound like distant waves. The envoy walked forward together. Laro's heart raced. Every step felt like history being written. At the end of the hall, shapes began to appear. Figures tall and steady, moving with quiet grace. Their eyes shone like they carried the stars within them. Humans had returned. And the galaxy stood helpless before the weight of that moment. The envoy stood together in the shining hall. None of them spoke at first. Their eyes followed the tall figures approaching. The humans moved with calm steps, their presence filling the space without effort. They did not wear heavy armor or carry strange devices. They stood simply, as if their very being was enough. Laro felt his breath catch. For years, he had read about the vanished ones in old texts. He had studied their maps and listened to their signal. Yet seeing them now was different. They were not myths. They were real. Their faces carried both age and youth, as if time itself bowed to them. The leader of the envoy, a counselor named Varen, stepped forward. He bowed slightly and began to speak in the formal tongue of the council. His voice was steady but heavy with caution. "We come as envoys of the Galactic Council. We welcome you and seek to understand your purpose here." The humans listened without interruption. Then, something extraordinary happened. One of them spoke, and every envoy understood. It was not through translation devices or machines. The words reached their minds as if spoken in their own native languages. "We return to see what has become of our home," the human said. His voice was gentle, yet it carried strength. "Long ago, we walked beyond the stars. Now we come back, not to take, but to remember." The hall was silent. The envoys looked at each other in wonder. Laro felt his heart beat fast. He wanted to speak, but he held himself back. Varen asked carefully, "Why did you leave?" "The galaxy remembers you as a mystery, a people who vanished." The human leader's eyes grew distant, as if recalling ages that others could not imagine. "We sought to learn what lay beyond. The galaxy was young then, and we wished to see the wider path. We walked far and saw much. But no matter how far we traveled, our thoughts always turned back to the place we first called home. The words settled deeply into the hearts of the envoys. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Saran's advice echoed in Laro's memory. Listen more than you speak. Yet he felt he could not remain silent. He stepped forward, his voice trembling yet clear. Many believed you were only stories, Laro said. But I studied your maps and your signal. I felt that you would return one day. Now you are here, and the galaxy is not the same. Some welcome you. Others fear you. What do you wish from us? The humans turned their gaze toward him. Laro felt the weight of their eyes, not heavy with judgment, but filled with quiet depth. The leader answered softly, We wish for nothing but to walk among you once more. We do not seek to rule or to demand. We seek to share what we have seen and to learn what has grown in our absence. The envoys whispered among themselves. Some looked relieved, others doubtful. It was hard to believe such power could return without purpose of control. Yet the humans gave no sign of threat. They stood like guardians of memory, steady and calm. The hall brightened as new shapes appeared. The walls shimmered and shifted until visions surrounded the envoys. Stars, worlds, and galaxies stretched in every direction. The humans were showing them what they had seen beyond the edge. Suns born from clouds of fire, oceans of light larger than any world, and paths where no council ship had ever traveled. The envoys gasped. Varen raised his hand as if to shield his eyes. Laro's heart filled with wonder. This was the truth of the vanished ones. They had not left in silence. They had walked across the endless dark and returned with knowledge that none could match. When the vision faded, the human leader spoke again. These are only fragments. The universe is wide, and we are but travelers. Yet this place is where we began. We return not as masters but as kin. For a long time, no one in the hall moved. Finally, Varen nodded slowly. Your words will be carried to the council. They will decide how to answer. But know this, your presence alone has already changed the galaxy. The humans inclined their heads. Change is the nature of life, they replied. Fear it not, for it can bring growth. As the envoy was guided back to their ship, Laro looked one last time at the humans. He felt as though he had stepped into a story that would never end. His doubts faded, replaced with a quiet certainty. Humanity had not returned to conquer. They had returned to remind the galaxy of something greater. The envoy ships left the human vessel and returned to council space. Yet none of the envoys could forget what they had seen. They carried not only the humans' words but also the feeling that history itself had awakened. And in the heart of every world, from the richest city to the smallest village, the same question echoed. What would the return of humanity mean for all the stars? The envoy returned from the human fleet carrying stories that spread faster than light. They spoke of tall figures with calm voices, of visions of faraway galaxies, and of words that promised no conquest but offered kinship. Some believed them. Others whispered that no people so powerful could return without hidden plans. The council called meeting after meeting. Fear and hope filled their chambers. No agreement was reached. Yet while the leaders argued, the humans acted in quiet ways that changed everything. The first sign came near a dying world. A sun at the edge of council space had begun to fade, its light turning weak and thin. The colonies around it were preparing to leave, for no council ship could heal a dying star. But before they could depart, the humans arrived. Their ships circled the weak sun. They released streams of light that wrapped around the star like threads of fire. For 3 days the colonies watched, uncertain what would happen. Then the sun blazed bright again, stronger than before. Worlds that had faced darkness woke to new dawns. Children ran through the streets laughing, while their parents looked to the sky in wonder. News of this spread across the galaxy. The vanished ones had healed a star. No council power had ever done such a thing. To many, this was not a threat but a gift. Soon other signs followed. A frozen planet was warmed until rivers flowed again. A station that had long suffered from broken systems was restored within hours after a human visit. Even fields on dry colonies began to bloom when touched by human machines that moved like living light. For the common people, these acts were miracles. They sang songs of gratitude and painted human symbols on their walls. Traders told tales of meeting humans who shared small devices that cleaned water, healed sickness, or grew food. Everywhere the humans walked, life became brighter. But inside the council chambers, the mood was not the same. Leaders argued in hushed voices. Some said the humans must be welcomed as partners. Others said their gifts were too great, too dangerous. If the people placed their trust in humans, what role would the council hold? Could leaders guide a galaxy when another race could heal stars and reshape worlds? Laro listened to these debates in silence. He was often called to speak, since he had been among the first to meet the humans. He always gave the same answer. They have not asked for rule. They only give. We should listen to them. But his words rarely calmed the fears of the counselors. One evening, while walking through the archive city, Laro saw the change with his own eyes. Families were gathered around a glowing device that a traveler had brought from a human ship. The device spread warmth and light across the cold street, though it needed no fuel. The people smiled, their faces soft with peace. Laro realized something important. The humans did not need to demand power. Their kindness was enough. If they continued to give, the people would follow them willingly. Not because they were forced, but because hope was stronger than fear. In the days that followed, whispers grew among the council. Some called it silent conquest. Others called it renewal. A few even suggested blocking the humans from entering council worlds. But how could such a thing be done? How could doors be closed against those who could walk across galaxies as if they were rivers? The truth was plain to see. Humanity had returned not with armies but with gifts. And those gifts reached deeper into the hearts of the people than any law or order from the council ever could. One morning, the council received word of a grand festival held on a distant colony. The people there had invited humans to walk among them. They celebrated with music and lights, and they gave the humans flowers, food, and songs. The counselors watched recordings of the event, their faces tight with unease. Yet to Laro, the message was clear. The galaxy had already chosen. Humanity had returned, and their gift was more than light or water. It was hope. That night, Laro climbed once again to the tower of the archives. He looked out at the wide sky. Somewhere out there, the humans were still moving, still giving, still bringing life. He thought of the maps he had found, the signal he had heard, and the moment he had stood before them. Every step had led to this. The vanished ones had returned, not as rulers but as givers. And the galaxy was awakening to a new dawn that no council could stop. The council chambers were filled with tension. Leaders of many species spoke in low, urgent voices. Some argued that the humans should be restricted, that their power could not be trusted. Others insisted the humans must be welcomed, for their gifts had already saved countless lives and worlds. Laro listened quietly from his seat. He had seen what humans could do. He had seen dying stars restored and barren lands bloom again. He had seen the joy of people who once feared darkness. To him, the humans were not conquerors. They were guardians and teachers. Yet fear had a strong voice in the council. Some species whispered that the humans would take control quietly. Their gifts were so great, it seemed impossible that anyone could resist. Council leaders argued whether to block the humans or to let them continue. Every word felt heavy with doubt. Then a crisis arrived. A massive star in a densely populated system was collapsing faster than any scientists could predict. 3 inhabited worlds orbited it, each with millions of people. The council scrambled, sending fleets and emergency ships, but calculations showed they would not arrive in time to prevent disaster. Panic spread across the galaxy. Families clung together. Cities evacuated as fast as possible, yet no plan could save everyone. The council was powerless, and the people grew desperate. Laro watched the news feeds from the archives. His heart sank. He realized that only the humans could act fast enough. He sent messages to the council, urging them to request help. The leaders hesitated, unsure whether to admit their need. Pride and fear battled inside the chambers. Finally, the council sent word to the human fleet. The humans responded immediately. Their ships moved like silent waves toward the dying star. Light beams stretched across space, bending and shaping itself to hold the star together. Laro watched in awe as their machines worked with precision, almost like living creatures. For hours, the star glowed weakly, then stronger, until finally it stabilized. The 3 worlds around it were saved. People cheered, cried, and hugged one another across millions of miles. The humans had acted without a single demand, without any claim of ownership or reward. The council was forced to reconsider. The skeptics had witnessed the truth. The humans were not rulers, and they did not seek control. They gave, and they lifted the galaxy when it needed them most. Laro spoke in the chambers. They have not asked for power. They have not demanded obedience. They only act for the good of all, he said. This is not a threat. It is a gift. If we accept them, the galaxy will grow stronger, not weaker. Some leaders still frowned. They said the humans' abilities could overshadow the council forever. Yet even they could not deny the relief and gratitude on the faces of those who had survived the dying star. The people were already looking to the humans for hope and guidance. As debate continued, Laro returned to the archives. He walked among the quiet halls, thinking about the signal, the maps, and the human ships. He understood that the galaxy had reached a turning point. A choice had to be made, not just by the council, but by every species that lived among the stars. The humans did not force the decision. They waited, as they had always waited, silently offering their presence and their gifts. Their patience was a lesson to all who watched. Laro thought about the star they had saved. If the council had acted alone, many worlds would have been lost. With the humans, no life was taken, and hope returned. At last, the council voted. They chose to accept humanity's return. They would work alongside the humans, learn from them, and share the guidance they offered. Some were still uneasy, but even the skeptics could not ignore what the humans had done. When the vote was announced, messages of relief and joy spread across the galaxy. People celebrated not only the return of humans but the promise of partnership. Laro smiled as he watched worlds rejoice. He understood that humanity's return had already changed the hearts of everyone. That night, he climbed the archive tower once more. The stars shone brightly across the sky. He thought of the humans walking silently among the galaxy, ready to help, ready to guide, yet never demanding control. For the first time, he felt a deep certainty. The galaxy had made its choice. Humanity had returned, and the choice to trust them had brought hope stronger than fear. Laro whispered to himself, "The vanished ones are not here to rule. They are here to lift us all." Somewhere in the distance, the human ships glowed softly among the stars. And for the first time in countless ages, the galaxy felt united in quiet awe and trust. The galaxy woke to a new era. Humanity had returned, not as rulers, but as partners. Every world felt the change, not through fear or command, but through hope and quiet guidance. The council no longer debated whether to trust the vanished ones. Their deeds had already spoken louder than any words could. Laro walked through the streets of the capital city. He watched families smile, children running through gardens that bloomed again, and markets filled with new energy. Humans moved among the people with calm steps, offering guidance, advice, and help wherever it was needed. They did not demand anything in return. Their presence alone lifted the spirits of everyone around them. On a distant colony, humans helped rebuild a water system that had failed for years. On a frozen planet, they guided farmers to grow crops in the harsh cold. Everywhere they went, they shared knowledge and tools that made life brighter and easier. No race felt left behind, and no world was ignored. The council worked closely with humans. Meetings once filled with argument and fear now carried cooperation and respect. Leaders of all species learned from the humans' patience and vision. The council's role had not disappeared, but it had changed. They became stewards who listened, helped, and guided alongside the humans rather than above them. Laro was often called to speak about humanity's deeds. Everywhere he went, people wanted to hear the story of the vanished ones returning. He told them about the signal that had pulsed across space, the maps that had guided him, and the calm figures who walked among the stars once more. Children sat wide-eyed and listened, dreaming of the galaxies beyond. One day, Laro climbed the highest tower of the archives. From there, he could see countless worlds glowing softly in the starlight. Ships moved like ribbons of light across space. Many were human, many were council fleets, and many were ships of independent races learning to work together. All of them carried the promise of a brighter future. He thought of the first maps he had found, the signal he had heard, and the moment he had met the humans. Every step had led to this new dawn. It was not a dawn of conquest, but of trust and unity. The galaxy had changed, not because of fear, but because hope had returned. Across the stars, humans moved quietly, helping where needed, teaching without speaking loudly, and guiding without control. They showed that strength was not in dominance, but in the ability to lift others higher. Laro understood that humanity had returned not to rule, but to remind the galaxy what it could be. On one peaceful world, children gathered around a glowing device, hearing stories of stars healed and lands renewed. They looked up at the sky, imagining the paths the humans had traveled and dreaming of worlds yet to explore. They did not fear the future, for they had seen that goodness could shape galaxies. In council chambers, leaders now spoke differently. They did not worry about the humans' power, because they saw that it was a power shared, not taken. They saw that the galaxy could thrive when guidance came with wisdom and care. The councillors smiled quietly, knowing that history was being written again, and it was a story of unity and light. Laro felt a warmth inside him as he watched the stars twinkle. The humans had returned, and the galaxy had learned to hope. No longer were worlds helpless. No longer were people afraid. The vanished ones had reminded everyone of a simple truth: strength was measured not by control, but by the lives one could lift. He whispered to the stars above, "The humans have returned. And the galaxy is ready for what comes next." Somewhere far beyond the reaches of Council space, human ships continued their silent journey among the stars. They had walked across galaxies and returned to their home not as conquerors, but as friends. And the galaxy, once uncertain and divided, now felt alive with possibility, ready to walk into a future of light and hope. The new dawn had arrived. Humanity was home, and the galaxy stood not helpless, but united in awe, trust, and wonder.